Hey guys, welcome back to another video. So I'm gonna be real with you guys. This video was recorded, I don't really remember if it's like a week ago or 2 weeks ago, but I wanted to give myself a little bit of like buffer room. So I actually had this footage in the back burner, kind of just like in preparation for that, just in case if I was gonna take longer on this little other project that I was kind of working on. So I actually had something else like ready for today. In terms of like drawing something in my sketchbook, but I feel like I've been drawing Selwin too much and painting him with gouache a little bit too much in my sketchbook. So I'm gonna switch gears. I decided to flip the videos and make this backup video this week's video and then push the other one to whichever other time whenever. So the timeline is gonna be a little bit weird. You're probably gonna notice that my nails are painted again. This was from, like I said, it's probably like a week or two ago. I'll jump into that a little bit later, but let's talk about what we're going to be drawing today. So I do have a sketch of Flins already kind of set out for us to paint today. I'm going to be using this little more blunt looking beat up brush to do a very brief wash of watercolor to kind of give me a better idea of color, lighting if there's any, as well as just priming the surface a little bit and preparing it for gouache. So unfortunately, it is another gouache video, but all I remember from this footage technically is one, I do not like the painting in the end, but I will be doing kind of like an extra sketch on the side anyways, which I like a lot better. And I just like sketching more in general versus painting. Other than watercolors I feel like could be a very good contender in terms of like, you know, my favorite mediums. But I mentioned earlier that I had this footage kind of like in the back burner, and I filmed this kind of like simultaneously alongside with the Selwin gouache painting that I did that has like him with the stars in front of his face. And I think because I was kind of like riding the high of enjoying gouache painting for that piece, that I wanted to quickly do another piece and kind of like knock out more filming. Also, you can kind of see I'm sliding a piece of cardstock paper in between. So like I mentioned, behind this Flins painting or sketch is actually the Selwin piece that I did before. And I've learned that if I accidentally oversaturate the paper with too much water, I can cause the paper just to have too much like moisture overall, and it can like sometimes seep through even though this paper is a lot thicker than what I'm used to. I don't want to accidentally reactivate any of the paint on the other side and make the pages either stick to each other or lose any of the pigment or anything like that, because now it's like reactivated. So I decided to put like a piece of cardstock before I got too far into painting, because I already noticed that while I was working with the watercolors, I can tell when I've definitely put too much water and the paint kind of like immediately seeps into the paper and doesn't really budge, and that kind of worries me. So I tried my best to remember earlier enough on to put something to separate those before we continue with more watercolor and then eventually with the gouache. Now, at this point, I actually liked what my sketch and the watercolor look like together. I kind of feel bad, and this is like low-key redemption for me, even though like I don't really like this piece in the end. Very early on when Flins was kind of like not fully released, but kind of, I don't know, you can see him like in trailers and stuff, but his like drip marketing wasn't out particularly yet, and like we didn't know too much about him. So I ended up like making a very quick sketch in my previous sketchbook, and I think I was planning on doing either alcohol markers or painting it with gouache, but I got so frustrated that I ended up scribbling and just started painting with paint markers, and I really hated that drawing. So I wanted to do at least, you know, Flins a little bit more justice in my sketchbook, even though this is not the same one. I wanted to see if I could give myself a little bit of redemption. But then again, I'm not proficient in gouache, so this might have gone poorly, and I'm glad that it didn't. But we are moving on to the gouache painting portion. So I'm using the HIMI MIYA Jelly Gouache as usual. I'm setting up my brushes. So there's like 3 in particular that I like to use, as well as I'm just taking out this little blunt end syringe to fill up some water into the rest of my paints to kind of let it pool a little bit to soften the paint just before we start working on it. So kind of like immediately, I've been really enjoying using kind of like this flat head brush, and I want to dig around now that I found one of my brush bags that I've had for a very long time. I want to see if there's another brush that's more of like a flat, like this one, but much smaller. There's something about the round ones which I like when it comes to doing very blunt details or doing like the line work where I want something to be more bold but like thinner. But using these flat brushes, I don't know, it just lays down a little bit more smoothly. I don't mind when the brush strokes it leaves is kind of like more choppy and blunt rather than it being very weirdly pointy or like a dot. I don't know if it makes sense. The type of marks that you get from like a round brush and like versus a square brush is very different. So I might want to look around to see if I have another smaller version of this particular brush because I like it quite a bit and I find it easier for me to lay down kind of like lighter washes or a lighter initial layer of color with like okay coverage, but it kind of leaves a little bit more of a softer edge, and I think that's like something I'm looking for, and the control of it is a little bit easier for me to understand. And I think when I use like round brushes, I do get a little bit more frustrated. It's not as like prevalent, I think, in this particular piece. So I'm kind of speaking in terms of the one that I've had ready for today, but I ended up switching the videos. I was struggling on trying to get a good consistency again with gouache after taking, I think it was like a 1 week break from it. And then I don't know if I forgot everything or maybe I was just trying too many different things at the same time. So I was getting a little bit frustrated. So I might try to distance myself away from using gouache just a little bit more. One, because I don't have to do this for every Monday's video. I know some people might be sick of me trying to like gouache and always seeing gouache as the Monday's video. I know some people prefer either like marker videos or sketching videos or whichever. I do want to do another kind of like more sketch focused type of video, but more of like long form and in real time, because I have not been giving my brain the proper break that it needs, and without looking at a screen for like a long duration. I know like when I work with, let's say, gouache, there's something about it that's like therapeutic to a certain degree, but then other times I'm still like combating a lot of things that I don't just mesh with gouache, like the consistency of it, working from mid-tone. Like I've mentioned many times in the past that I find it easier to streamline my process from going typically light to dark, and that makes most sense when working with like a lot of dry mediums or if you're working with watercolors. And oh, I forgot to talk about this. I was gonna maybe do this for a stream where I was gonna talk a little bit more about this particular, I don't know if this is a medium, tool maybe might be a better way of describing it, but in the past, when I used to do watercolors, I used to use masking fluid actually quite a bit to preserve a lot of like white areas in my drawings, or to kind of like block out borders if I'm doing like large washes. I bought some recently because I had to buy something for one of my parents, and I decided to put an add-on item because I was like, well, why not? I'm paying for it anyway, so why can't I just add something else that I think might be useful? So I ended up adding a masking fluid. Now, I haven't used this brand before, so I'm going to test it out and see how well it works, but I think it'd be kind of fun to experiment, and especially because if you guys have watched Saturday's video, you know how gung-ho I am about wanting to do a lot of different like little illustrations for Selwin, and I have like a lot of ideas kind of floating around in my brain. I want to do another watercolor piece, but the idea of kind of like preserving some light areas is kind of like intimidating me a little bit because I want to do smaller details with stars, but if I want to have a dark background behind all the small details, I would have to like meticulously avoid all these tiny little areas of like light color. So I am going to see if I can remember the steps that I want to take to kind of push a very dark and more elaborate background and keep a lot of these lighter areas still intact. And I'm going to try my best to use masking fluid every so often to kind of like help with that as well. The other thing is like reusing my old, I don't know if I think they're like concentrated watercolor, liquid watercolor, I think it's what it is. So basically I had this brand, I think it's the Dr. P.H. Martin brand that has like these liquid watercolors, and they're kind of like semi-permanent to an extent. I want to say they're like 80% permanent when it comes to like laying down the pigment on the paper, because it does lift ever so slightly or like leaves a little bit of residue, but it's like very subtle. So I want to see if I can use that to help layer up a lot of like tonal value and stuff, or like, you know, pushing the values to be much deeper, and having something that won't budge and like you can slowly layer up can help create a lot of depth. And I've done this like in previous illustrations. I think there's one of Reimu way back when I drew a lot of like forget-me-nots and I wanted to really make the blue very deep and rich. And then there's another one that I did for a 17 illustration of the vocal unit for their song Come to Me, and I did a lot of like these darker and lighter colors of both like yellow, green to blue kind of transitions for foliage. So I kind of want to dip back into just going really ham with doing watercolors. And I don't know, I haven't really done any watercolors in a while where I went ham with like doing more background or some sort of like context for the character. I've done a lot more like headshot or just like of the character on a white background. So I'm gonna try to plan a few things and then see if I can paint them, because I feel ambitious again when it comes to like working with traditional medium, and me pushing away slightly from gouache is probably going to help me keep up this momentum at least. So kind of like on a completely side note before we talk about the art again, or at least the process, you can kind of tell this is old footage. I don't really remember if I talked about this earlier in the video, but my nails are painted again, and I feel like I do paint them quite often, but this was not recent. So my nails right now are currently not painted, and these ones, I think I only had them for maybe like a week. So the reason why I change my nails fairly often, and I know it's not great, like you can definitely make your nails fairly weak, but I have like a peel off base coat. So whenever the nails actually start to really peel or they pop off sometimes, I will just like take the rest of them off and then have my natural nails again. Or if I want to, I'll like repaint them with a new set of colors or whatever. It's just been kind of fun experimenting with them. It might be one of those phases, like I keep getting more videos and shorts and like reels about like nail artists, and they show you how to make like really cute ombres and like all their cute designs. So I've been watching a lot of those, and because I do have some of the supplies with me ever since my friend got married in the summer, I ended up doing like I mentioned like a long time ago that my friend and I were gonna do her nails for her wedding, and I ended up doing her nails instead. So I do have a lot of like nail supplies because of that. So I'm just gonna like slowly use them up anyways, so might as well just play around with some of the colors while I can. But then again, I'm more of like a hands-on person, so I feel like that's why a lot of the times, regardless of the peel-off base coat, I get a lot more like chipping and just like wear and tear on the nails. But I do like having the nail polish every so often because it gives my nails a bit of time for it to grow without having it like particularly snap or break. But yeah, it's kind of just a weird side tangent. These are definitely old ones. I forget which footage I had, but I had like a few videos with these nails. I do think these ones are very cute, so I'll definitely do them again in the future. That are like, there's another set that I really like from I think it's like a Japanese artist that I follow on Instagram who do like really cute kind of like ombre-ish nails, which I've been really into more lately. But kind of back to the painting. So I don't know. I think it's mostly because I'm focused on the face most of the times, especially because this is a portrait, it's going to be primarily focused on the face. I do not like this one because of the eyes. They are a little off kilter, but also I think I just kind of like struggled drawing Flins's eyes because there is a lack of a pupil. And usually this wouldn't be a problem because I can make do with either having the highlight present in some sort of way to give a little bit more context for the eyes. But his eyes are also like really light. So the kind of upper eyelid, eyelash area, and the lower lid, I feel like you have to be a little bit more careful or mistakes are a lot more obvious, which in this case, it is very obvious. I will try my best to kind of fix and even out his eyes eventually at the very end. I don't think it really works out in my favor, and I think that's like the main reason I don't like this piece in particular. And the fact that every time I get reintroduced back into doing gouache, and I don't typically do them back to back, but because I did do this one right after I painted the one of Selwin earlier, I thought I knew what I was doing, but as soon as I started painting the hair, it's like I forgot how to paint again. So I can still tell that I'm still learning a lot from just like trying to enjoy gouache, understanding the consistency, understanding how to layer up things or how I want things to look. I actually don't mind how his clothing looks here, especially like the kind of larger collar on his, it's not quite a jacket, is it? It's not quite a shawl per se either, but I kind of like how it looks. It's very similar to how like I would paint with acrylics in a way, so like having my highlights not be like super duper bright and like highlighting everything kind of fades out nicely, and just having the shadows and creating that little bit of depth. So I do like his clothes, at least the collar-ish area. His hand is a little funky, the hair is a little funky, face is a little funky, so it's not my favorite piece. But let's talk about what I'm doing right now. So I haven't done this in a hot minute, so I decided to pick a kind of like older brush. I swear this was the brush I used to use when I was working with acrylics, or even like previously I would do this with I think gouache as well. So I'm doing a dry brush technique, which I haven't done in a while, like I mentioned, but the brush that I was using initially, I feel like it was just a tad bit too soft. It's better to use an old brush when you're doing dry brushing like that, because like from its name, you're using a dry brush and typically very not super wet paint and not a lot of it, and you want to just basically scrub and kind of airbrush almost the surface of your painting, and it kind of gives this more like airier effect or like fuzzy effect. And I like doing this to give more of like a glowing look to some colors or some areas, and then going in with something very bright and very sharp to kind of give it more of that contrast. And I did that for the sparkles here. It's not my favorite, but I don't think they look too bad overall. But I think for me, I knew I was trying to embellish the piece a little bit so that hopefully I would like it a little bit more, because I knew I was still disliking his face. You can kind of see that I tried fixing his eyes a smidge. I was trying to bring up the eye line a little bit, trying to darken certain parts so that the unevenness was a little bit less obvious. It did correct itself a smidge. It's just the right eye, I guess, or the eye on the right hand side is just too high compared to the one on the left. And I know it's my habit of whenever I draw eyes, sometimes I don't see the curve of where I draw like my face line or whatever, and I draw one slightly higher than the other and I don't correct it. So it's just something I should just be a little bit more mindful, because it is becoming kind of a bad habit for myself. So we are moving on to the just very brief sketching portion of the video. I did double check to see whether or not any of Flins's kind of painting portion left too much moisture and it might have like seeped into Selwyn's page. Luckily it's still safe, but I'll just keep like a piece of paper in between anyways, just to keep it safer, just until we move on to more pages in the sketchbook, and then I'll feel a little bit safer for, you know, making sure that doesn't get like damaged or anything. So for the sketching portion, I am using the Uni Dia Colour lead once again, and I've talked about this a little bit. The blue lead from this particular line of like colored leads is one of my favorites. So I've always liked using colored leads, but I've mostly used the ones from Pilot Color Eno, and those ones are always still my favorite, but there's just something about this one that is very smooth and creamy feeling. So when sketching, it just, I don't know, it just glides on the paper super nicely. It doesn't feel like very rough, nor does it feel too hard of a lead. I feel like if you've sketched with a almost really cheap type of lead, where it feels like it's like scratching the paper, but it doesn't leave enough pigment either, so you feel like you have to press harder to make it look a little bit darker. This one's kind of the opposite. So it feels very smooth, it's very creamy, it leaves down like its pigment very easily. So I had a very fun time just sketching out Flins just in general, and then later on we'll start to darken things up, which becomes very easy with this lead, and then I'll start to shade as well. I can definitely see myself using this particular color and lead type a lot more in my sketchbook, just doing normal sketches rather than using graphite occasionally, just because it does leave a little bit less residue on my hand, or like in between sketches there's a little less smudging. But I have half the mind to just go ahead and go onto Jet Pens to buy a little bit more of this particular lead. They do have a few other colors that I'm kind of interested in. But if there's like a medium or a tool or something that I really like, and I've used it for, I guess, like long enough period of time that I know that it's going to become like either a staple or it's something I'm going to use up a lot, I most likely will just end up buying more of it right away because of fear that it might go extinct. Or like, you know, maybe when I do need it, then it's not going to be in stock on the store. So I do buy a lot of my recent art supplies, I guess, or somewhat like unique looking art supplies that I know some of you guys are always like asking, like, oh, where did you buy such and such as like the pencil that I'm using, its components, the lead, all of that is from Jet Pens. And it makes it like, this is not a sponsor, by the way, it doesn't make sense if it was, but the website makes it very easy to find like compatible items with like one another. So for me, I could either like look up the lead, which is just like a 0.5 lead, and you can look up whatever mechanical pencil takes that particular size, or you can go do, let's say, the barrel component of this particular pencil I really liked because it could do 5 different components. But I could search up like the different types of components that it could have. So I could see that it could take a 0.5 type of lead. It can do like, I think it's like gel pen type of pen refills as well, because it is the high-tech C, so there's a lot of lead and ink in that kind of area of their brand, as well as there is an eraser component, which currently I do have on this pencil. I'm thinking of getting rid of it because I use a kneaded eraser a lot more, and if I'm sketching like this, other than the very beginning where I shifted Flynn's eyes, or his one eye, a little bit over, I don't really erase too much if I'm careful about my initial sketching. So because of that, I am going to get rid of the eraser component. Not only that, the eraser is just not my favorite. It's a little bit too bendy. I don't know if it's because of the little component that it's in, or the barrel of the pencil is a little bit too long, so by the time you extend the eraser, it's going to be very flimsy, and the fact that I feel like it just doesn't erase as nicely. So I'm going to replace it for either like a pen so that I can do line art while I'm doing sketching, or I'll just replace it with another colored lead because I'm kind of interested in trying a different color at some point. But yeah, here's kind of our sketch of Flins that I'm kind of slowly finishing up. And yeah, I'm just kind of glad that I ended up doing some sort of sketch on the side. I don't hate the spread as much. But yeah, that's just the sketch of Flins. Oh, I guess I do end up... Why did I write the date like that? That's so strange. If I'm looking at this correctly, I'm gonna double check actually. Yeah, so Flins and Selwin was both done on the 1st of November, so it's been over 2 weeks. I'm actually a little bit shocked of how long ago this was filmed, but you know, that's okay. I hope you guys enjoyed watching me paint Flins with gouache today, as well as a little bit of a sketch, and I'll talk to you guys next time in the next video. Bye!